What's going on, people? My name is Alam. Welcome to another In Motion Football live stream. Today, we have a new concept, actually, something that I'm bringing to this channel. We got mock draft reactions. So, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 3.0 and kind of just talking through what the picks are at every pick. Now, I think there's going to be different kinds of reactions depending on I guess what the nature of the pick is, but yeah, we're gonna try to get into the different layers of what kind of takes there could be, whether it's financial stuff, whether it's drafting for the future, whether it's filling needs, whether it's BPA trade discussions, a lot of things to get at. So that's what we're gonna do today. To everybody that's gonna find this channel for the first time, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Two very important forms of engagement for the growth of a YouTube channel. So with that said, I'm going to get the mock-up on the screen and we're going to get started. Let me see what works best. I think this is okay. I think this is fine. You see enough. If I have to go into the depth charts, I'll do what I have to do and I'll switch it up. But I think this is okay for now. So the first pick, Caleb Williams. Not really much to no need to force it with this one. You know what it is. You traded your quarterback. You have to go quarterback. You aren't gonna overthink it with Jaden Daniels and Drake May. You don't want to look like the team that basically traded away Bryce Young / CJ Stroud and then seemingly are going to not take Caleb Williams. That's not what you can do as an organization. So I think my camera just froze, but that'll fix itself in a couple seconds. Yeah, with that being the case, you're not passing up on Caleb. Pick number 2, Drake May. I guess this is really where the draft starts for most people. The question is, do they take Jaden Daniels or Drake May? They're not going to pass up on a quarterback. They already traded Sam Howell. I think right now they have Marcus Mariota. So similar to the Bears, who I think right now only have Brett Rippon. You're not going to pass up on the quarterbacks. Shout out Leon, by the way. Yeah, tap in with us. Interestingly enough, the first time I'm back, pick number 1, the camera freezes, but it'll figure itself out. Yeah, so with the Commanders, the question really is just Daniels or Drake May. And really, it's interesting because both quarterbacks are, I guess you could say, boom or bust prospects. However you look at it, there's a risk for both picks. They're not similar prospects, I would say. I think the age is different. Daniels is an older quarterback. He's going to be 24 as a rookie. I think the question with Daniels is more about the offense he was in, and the question with May is more the tools that he's walking into the league with. I think most people look at Drake May and say, if you give the guy an opportunity to sit down, he'll definitely be good. The question is whether you can mess his mechanics up by playing him too early. And the question with Daniels is more, is he even gonna be able to play in the NFL style offense now? I think for the Commanders, I think they swing for the fences. I think they take Drake May. He has them taking Drake May. I'm rocking with that one for sure. The reason I think they swing for the fences is they got the new ownership group. They got Cliff. I don't think they've made a ton of splashy moves in free agency. And I don't think they have a whole home off season through and through. I think at some point something happens and they make a move. And I think Drake May is the move. I think Jaden Daniels, while some people have him as the higher rated player, I don't think that move would be as exciting. Pick number 3, we got the Patriots taking Jaden Daniels. And I guess the Patriots at this point finally figure out their quarterback spot. They get an older player, 24 years old. Some would say that you may as well just play him. My concern at this point would be, okay, I think my camera stopped bullshitting. I think I'm back. All right, let's go. Yeah, so I think the thing with Jaden Daniels is just what is that Patriots offense going to offer him? Because this is the pick you would take to get your receiver. If you look at the Patriots depth chart, they have the same receiving core as last year. plus KJ Osborne. And then if you look at the running back room, it's the same running backs as last year, but with Antonio Gibson, I think. So their skill position situation is not good. So I really don't think they have the supporting cast to put Jaden Daniels to just throw him into the NFL. So I don't think that's really the way. I think Jaden Daniels gets drafted and sits down. I think Jacoby Brissett has to show up and just take the hits and endure through that offense in terms of the lack of help he's gonna have, and just then the year after is the Jaden Daniels year. But I would love to see, like, if the Patriots got a good receiver in the offseason, let's say they end up with T. Higgins somehow, right? Then I'd like to see Daniels play early. Because again, if you're 24, I don't know. I don't think we should have to wait that long. I think you should just play. But yeah, I think you might have to protect him from what could happen if you play him too early, considering the weapons in New England. But so far, I'm kind of rolling with what Daniel Jeremiah is doing. Pick number 4 is when he mocks a trade up with Minnesota, and I think this is really where I begin to be like, all right, we got to pump the brakes here. And I think we'll start with the very first thing to look at, which is he's calling for Arizona trading back. Now, I think Arizona is definitely in a position where they're not in a hurry. Their offseason suggests that. But my thing is, they also just got rid of all their receivers. They got rid of Rondale. They got rid of Hollywood Brown. I think right now their wide receiver one is Michael Wilson. They're in a prime situation to get a wide receiver. So I don't know why Arizona would trade back like this. Like in this, is he mocking value? No, he's not. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think Arizona would trade back. And then the other thing is like when it comes to Minnesota trading up, it's the easiest thing to read that they're positioning themselves to be able to trade up. You look at their depth chart, they have Sam Darnold and Jaren Hall. That's an incomplete quarterback room. They want a quarterback. They just traded into the first round. So they have 2 first-round picks now. They're gearing up to trade, but I think it's so obvious that that's what they're going to do that I think they're in a tough position when it comes to negotiating. I really don't think they have that much leverage. I think a team is going to fleece them. I think the trouble with Minnesota becomes if you trade to the top of the draft. So if you trade to number 4, how badly do you get fleeced? Because there's probably going to be other teams looking to trade to number 4. You're I think in a more desperate position to make a trade. So I think if they trade high in the draft, they're going to get smoked in the trade. I think they're going to trade way too much. I think there's going to be a ton of pressure on that quarterback, and that's just not a good position. And then if they don't give into that, and then they don't trade up that high, I think that means they don't get the top 4 quarterbacks and they end up with Bo Nix or Penix. And then at that point, I think the question becomes like, did you even get a good enough quarterback? For what it's worth, I think Penix there would be fine, but there's downsides with Penix as well. Shout out Joel. If they don't get a quarterback in the draft, Jefferson has gone to Cincy. Yeah, like, bro, I think they'll throw the big bag at him regardless, but that's the thing, though. Like, they have to get a quarterback. The pressure is real. That GM, I think, if his tenure would look really, really bad if he can't get his hands on a quarterback. So, yeah, I think this is kind of where the mock begins to get wild. So it's J.J. McCarthy going at 4. It's the trade out for Arizona. It's Minnesota getting this high up. Like, if he's going to mock this trade, I think he should have to mock the entire trade. Like, what is the compensation going the other way? But yeah, that's the thing. What else was going to say? If the quarterbacks are going to go high, I could understand 4 being the trade back spot, but I think 5 would be a better trade back spot. And this is why. I think you have to get in front of the Giants because I think it's plausible to think the Giants would take McCarthy. So you just have to get in front of 6. I think 5 makes more sense than 4 because 1, it's a pick later. So you're not trading up as high. You can trade less value. 2, I think the Chargers are going to be more... Like, I think they're in a better spot to trade back, or like, I think they would be more eager to trade back. I think Arizona just traded back last year out of the 5th pick. Oh no, they had the 4th pick or the 3rd pick, but Arizona already traded back out of the draft last year. I'm sure they'd be interested in doing it again, but I think with the Chargers, you just got Harbaugh. If you look at what they did to the wide receiver room, they got rid of it. I think they're looking to take receiver and left tackle. Honestly, um, both positions can be gotten later in the draft. But I look at what their need is at receiver. Bro, they have a Greg Roman offense next year. I wouldn't be surprised if receiver is not the need. I wouldn't be surprised if left tackle is the position they want to draft. And I think you can do that. You have an easier time doing that later than getting your superstar receiver the way Arizona needs, because they don't just need a receiver, they need a certified wide receiver one. I don't think they trade off of Marvin Harrison Jr. But in this mock, speaking of Marvin Harrison Jr., he's got the Jets trading up to 5 with the Chargers to take the first receiver off the board. Now, with this one, I think this pick got messed up today because they just signed Mike Williams. They just signed presumably their wide receiver 2. Obviously, Wilson is locked in at wide receiver 1. Mike Williams, you just paid him $15 million a year. That's your wide receiver 2. So are the Jets going to trade up to take a wide receiver 3? No. So this is already messed up. Would another team, trade up to 5 for Marvin Harrison Jr.? It's plausible, but I don't see that the Titans aren't doing it for sure. The Falcons aren't doing it for sure. I don't think the Bears, they actually don't have the draft picks to trade up. So the Bears aren't doing it for sure. The Giants aren't doing it. They wouldn't trade up 1 pick. So to be honest, like with the trade up to 4, I think the trade up to 5, especially with the Mike Williams signing, it's messed up. But in terms of like I can't talk about them getting Mike Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. because of the Mike Williams thing. But like, if you look at the Jets team, obviously their defense is good and pretty well rounded. They added some pieces. They got Kinlaw, and I think they signed somebody else on the defense. But like, they're probably going to go offense. They signed Tyron Smith. They traded for Morgan Moses. So they have their offensive line in terms of the starters. I don't think you draft offensive line for the future or you draft offensive line depth. For Aaron Rodgers, or for the Jets, I think it's pretty clear what you do. You draft a player that you can throw the ball, that Aaron Rodgers can throw the ball to. And I think with Mike Williams being the signing, the Jets are prime Brock Bowers candidates. So they won't have to trade up for him, I don't think. So I think, again, like, I like what he's doing. I enjoy the wilding that's going on here. But nah, I think this is, in a matter of hours, this pick got broken. Too quick. The Giants taking Malik Nabers is the next pick. Malik Nabers, I think it's a conversation who goes as the wide receiver 2, Nabers versus Dunze. There's a lot of Nabers hype. I like Dunze better personally. I think Rome is amazing. I think I watch him and I see so much DeAndre Hopkins. I like Nabers too. I like Nabers a lot, but I think Rome is so unique when it comes to the skills he has at his size and his strength, the physicality he plays with. But like, you take in how big and strong he is, but also they toss end arounds to him. He's an unreal player. So I think I disagree with Nabers going first, but that's just personal because I know that it's close enough to where people are going to have their favorites, and it's just very much which team likes which receiver. But in terms of the Giants going receiver, right? Let me look at the Giants team. I think this is the first time we're going to have to look at the team to see where it makes sense for them to go. Yeah, they probably do need receiver, but at the same time, they have Hyatt, Slayton, Wandale, and they signed Isaiah McKenzie. So it's like you have your 4 receivers that are going to play. Like, I don't understand the point in having these guys if you're not going to play them. But obviously, they're not good enough. So you do need to get better. I just don't understand what they're doing or what the philosophy is there. But yeah, like, I don't know. I look at their offensive line. I think they probably have every spot sorted out, although I don't know who Aaron Stinney is, the left guard that's on this depth chart. I think they start Andrew Thomas at left tackle. I think they start Schmitz, Runyon, and Jermaine Illuminor. So they got, like, they're not going to go guard here. Maybe you could kick a tackle inside, but I think that would be irredeemable as well. Obviously, you can't go running back here. Quarterback, the thing is, I'm gonna have them taking a quarterback if there's a quarterback to take at 6. I think with quarterbacks going 1 to 4, that's kind of been messed up in this mock. But if the fourth quarterback is still there, I have them going quarterback. Um, I think 6 might be too high to take Penix or Bo Nix. I think if Penix or Bo Nix goes to the Giants, honestly, I think both of them are screwed as players. But something to consider with the Giants is that Daniel Jones, right? Obviously, he tore his ACL. Um, he's not going to be healthy for the beginning of the year, right? But with Daniel Jones, he has a $23 million injury guarantee for 2025, meaning there's $23 million that's unguaranteed, presuming he's healthy, but it would become guaranteed if he gets hurt. So the risk of playing Daniel Jones next year is you might make yourself have to pay $23 million when you cut him. Because let's be honest, the Giants are going to cut him for sure after this year. So from their standpoint, it's going to be like Russell Wilson, like the way the Broncos just put Russell Wilson on the bench because they didn't want him to get hurt. They didn't want to risk, again, the injury guarantee being triggered. The same thing is going to happen to Daniel Jones, I think, and especially considering the fact that he has, a torn ACL that he'll be recovering from. He's not going to be all the way healthy. Like, that's very risky. So I almost don't even factor Daniel Jones on the depth chart. I look at it like they have Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito, and that's 100% a situation that a quarterback could be drafted into. I think if they can't go quarterback at 6 because quarterbacks went too high, I think they wait and they hope that Bo Nix or Penix drop into the second round. And maybe they would consider trading into the back of the first round if it looks like they wouldn't. But I don't think that the Giants reach for quarterback 5/6 at the 6th overall pick in the draft. But I'll look defensively, see what they could do. Thing is, here the only positions to take defensively would be edge, and they have Brian Burns and Thibodeau. So honestly, I guess receiver and quarterback is all they can do here. Looking at the depth chart, I just realized that this view is kind of off. I mean, I should be doing this when I look at the depth charts. Forgive me, people, but yeah, you look at the receivers, they're shit, but there's a lot of them. You look at the offensive line, their spot that they haven't filled yet is guard. You look at the defense, the only value here is edge, and they have Burns and Thibodeau. So that's just what it is. Like, the Giants are probably going to go quarterback or receiver. This mock is dictating receiver, but I think they'll ultimately go quarterback. The next pick is Titans and left tackle. This is cash money. So this is Joe Alt. I think a lot of people have Joe Alt. I think that's the safe pick. Why did I do this? But I don't know, like, personally, I don't know who evaluators are going to have as the best left tackle. I obviously personally don't scout left tackle, so I don't know myself. But yeah, look at this, people. Are you going to draft a receiver here? No, you just paid Nuke you gave Nuke a bag. You paid Calvin Ridley a pretty big contract, and you still have Treylon Burks. You're not going receiver, right? Left tackle, obviously, I talked about that. There's no interior lineman to go for. Obviously, like, the thing is, they have Chig. So, like, technically you could say they are a Bowers candidate, but they have Chig, so they're probably not Bowers candidates. They're not going quarterback. There's no running back to take. And again, this point in the draft, the only defensive position you can draft is edge, but they have Harold Landry and Arden Key. They have their 2 edge rushers from last year. I know Harold Landry is considered, like, he's a good player, but Arden Key, I think they gave him a bet on himself kind of a deal. And I actually don't know how he played, but, like, maybe they could go edge. But even then, like, they have an edge technically, right? Maybe they could go tight end, but they have a tight end. Bro, their left tackle situation was dire last year. They cut Andre Dillard in the middle of the year. So no left tackles are off the board. It's a great left tackle draft. They have a big need. The Titans taking a left tackle is cash money. Personally, I also think the Falcons going edge is cash money as well. If you guys are going to bet on the draft, I think those are 2 of the safer things to bet on. So they got Dallas Turner going here. I think the question is like, who's your favorite edge rusher out of Verse and Dallas Turner? I think most people would say Dallas Turner, but Laiatu Latu is apparently going to drop because of medical concerns. While he's looked at as a pretty good edge rusher, he's not going to go high. Dallas Turner to Atlanta, another pick you can feel pretty good about. We'll look at the Falcons depth chart to kind of, again, like, process of elimination, figure out their choices, right? Now, this would be an awesome spot to go receiver, right? You could go Rome here, I think. Yeah, but you traded for Rondell Moore. You gave Darnell Mooney 13 mil a year, and you have Drake London, right? You're not gonna like. The question becomes who's your wide receiver three? Is your wide receiver three a guy you paid 13 mil to? No. Is your wide receiver three a guy you took in the top 10 in the draft in Drake London? No. So that's your one and your two. With as incomplete of a team as Atlanta is, you don't draft a wide receiver three at 8th overall, so they're not going receiver. They have two really good offensive tackles already, so they're not going offensive line. You don't go Brock Bowers when you have Kyle Pitts, right? They have two. They just paid Kirk Cousins a bunch of money. They're not drafting his backup. Like, that's not happening. They can't go offense. Now, if you go defensively, again, the only position to draft is edge. And edge is also, if you look at their team, it's not a strong suit right now. So Atlanta goes edge. That's locked in. I feel really good about that one. Now, this is where things get really interesting, because if you heard Murtaza talking about the Bears yesterday, what he told you was the Bears only have 4 picks, right? So with the Bears only having 4 picks, they become pretty strong trade back candidates, right? Um, However, I think the only exception for them trading back would be if some premier talent is available. And I think that might be the case the way this mock is going. Rome Odunze, again, like, I think he for me is my second favorite wide receiver in this draft. Again, like, I see a lot of DeAndre Hopkins when I look at his game. Um, yeah, if they load up on the receiving core like this, they have to go, I think, receiver in the draft. If they get an opportunity to get Rome, Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore for Caleb Williams, that's an amazing situation. Seems a bit too good to be true. I don't think Rome is actually going to be here. If I were to do my mock draft, I'd have him going earlier. I'd have Neighbors going before this pick as well. I do think what's actually going to happen here is that the Bears are going to trade back. But yeah, this one has Rome. The other places the Bears could go, edge, defensive tackle, and I think center. And this is way too high for center. It's realistically too high for defensive tackle. So if the Bears sit here and make the pick, realistically, it's going to be receiver or edge. It's probably a bit too high for verse. It's not that far off, but probably it's a bit high. So being that a lot of their needs, it's a little bit too high to take. That's why they're candidates to trade back. But yeah, Rome or trade back is probably with the Bears, it's probably top 3 receiver in the draft: Neighbors, Rome, or Marvin Harrison Jr., or trade back. I think the trade back's actually going to happen, but he's got Rome going here. He's got the Chargers going offensive tackle in the trade back. This is an interesting one because I don't have the Chargers trading back necessarily as of yet. They might trade back for a team looking to get ahead of the Giants for a quarterback. But if at 5, I would have them taking an offensive tackle. At 10 here, definitely they could take an offensive tackle. I think it becomes a question of, again, which offensive tackle do you like? In this mock right now, Joe Alt is the only one off the board. There's a lot of offensive tackles that could go as the second tackle off the board. This is the one Jeremiah gave them. Again, I don't really scout tackles like that, so I don't know. But I'm assuming that, like, any of the guys could work here, and I wouldn't really complain too much. Arizona in the trade back, they go Jared Verse. That makes sense. As a defense, they could use whatever they could get, man. Again, like, I was really disappointed with their offseason. I thought they could have got better. I don't think they got much better in terms of talent. But yeah, Arizona here would trade back yet again out of the top 5 in the draft and land a very good, talented player in Jared Verse. But again, I don't have them trading back out from 4 to 11. So that's what he has. Hypothetically, though, there's no position that I think is out of the question with Arizona. Like, not no position, but like, I think a lot of their positions they could upgrade. There's not a lot of untouchable positions on their team. Next pick is the Broncos. He's got Brock Bowers going there. I think the interesting thing about this mock is what he anticipates is that people aren't going to reach for Penix or Bo Nix, because I think the Broncos have to take a quarterback. But the team that has to take a quarterback, looking at those two quarterbacks and opting for a tight end, that's a bad sign for both those. What he thinks of both of their stocks. If he thinks that their stocks are high, he's probably mocking one of the quarterbacks here. This is kind of a sign that he thinks they might fall. And I kind of agree, to be honest. But Brock Bowers to Denver. Let me look at the Broncos team. Let me see what they could do. Uh, I don't like, I love Brock Bowers. I don't love the idea of like trying to change your team starting at tight end, but it is what it is. He's like a very good talent. The tight end room is Adam Troutman and Dulcich. So that makes sense. That makes sense. Nobody there to keep him away. It's too early to go running back. They have their tackles sorted out. They could, to be honest, they could go receiver too. It's too high to go to the second tier of receivers. Like, I don't think you can go Worthy or Mitchell or Leggett. It's too high for those guys. But yeah. So I guess if you're gonna go offense here, it's quarterback or tight end, and then if you look at the defense, it's probably too early to go edge again because of Latu's medical issues and Verse being off the board. So yeah, I mean, maybe defensive tackle would be the move with the guy from Texas, but yeah, I can understand Bowers being the pick if the draft shakes out like this. But man, they need a quarterback this badly. Look at the quarterback room: Jarrett Stidham and Ben DiNucci, and he has them passing up on a quarterback. That's a pretty bad indictment, I think, in terms of what he thinks about the draft stock of Penix and Bo Nix. Next pick, what is it? Oh, okay. Oddly enough, the very next pick is Penix. So that's a bit of a surprise. I think if you have Penix going in this range, Denver, like, damn, Denver passing on Penix and him going to the division rival Raiders. I really think that this makes sense in terms of what the Raiders would be thinking. And like, I think they need a quarterback for sure because they have Minshew and O'Connell right now. That's not enough. So I understand wanting to go quarterback. I like Penix over Bo Nix, so I like him going before Bo Nix in this mock. I don't love the Raiders as a landing spot for Penix because I saw what Getsy did with Justin Fields, and Penix is not a similar player to Justin Fields, but I just think his ideas were off. And I don't think he showed he had the best idea of how to kind of bring along a young quarterback. So I think that's not something I would look like. That's not something I'm encouraged by. Obviously, Penix would have Devontae Adams to throw to, and that's amazing. Obviously, in college, he had Rome Odunze. He basically had a superstar receiver to throw to in college, and you saw that he did well with it, right? But Penix going to Vegas and having Devontae, that part of it checks out, but the offensive line, it's not. Sorry, not the offensive line. The offensive coordinator, he really, really scares me. He really scares me for this pick. Many teams have been scared of drafting quarterbacks in the first round because of the past three drafts. I also think, to be honest, I don't know if you're specifically getting at what I'm thinking about, but I think the trend in the last couple of drafts has been not overdrafting quarterbacks that aren't in the top tier of the draft. Like, I think you have your quarterbacks that go like top of the draft. So last year it would be Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud. You have those guys always. But then after that, like, they didn't overdraft Will Levis. The league let Levis fall into the territory he always should have been at. He was talked about like he could have been a top 10 prospect. That was always crazy. Second round is fair, and that's what he fell into. Jalen Hurts, right? The league didn't really trip off of the fact that like teams needed quarterbacks and he fell out, like he wasn't in that top tier of prospects. Let him fall to the second round, probably got drafted where he belonged. That's, I think, more the trend. I think you don't see a whole lot of tripping out and overdrafting players. So that's kind of what I've noticed. Kenny Pickett was supposed to go in the second, third round, but the Steelers got him in the first round. You know what it is, though? I think that was that you are right. That is the exception to what I'm saying. I also think Pittsburgh tripped out about the fact that he was a Pitt quarterback. Like, I just think that like the fact that he was local and like I guess he was established in the area and they had known about him for years probably. I think they really let that cloud their judgment with that one, because that was crazy. Pickett at 20 was insane. That had no they had no business taking him in that spot. But yeah, this pick, I don't know. Don't love it. Don't love it for the Raiders because of the OC. I don't love it for Penix. But we'll see, man. If this happens, I think it'll be really interesting to see who plays next year. Is it Penix or is it Gardner? Because Gardner got 12.5 mil a year. That's not bad money. But Penix is 24. Penix is not young, so you may as well let him play. They got the Saints going Olu for Shanu. Let me check their depth chart to see what they could do, because I don't even have the best grasp of like what their needs are off top, right? Probably too early to go receiver. But their receiver situation looks decent with Rashid Shaheed and Olave. So I think the left tackle is their weakness on their offensive line, because Trevor Penning hasn't panned out yet. So I guess this is sorting that out. You can't go tight end. It's because Brock is off the board. You can't go quarterback because you're in too deep with Derek Carr. Can't go running back. Defensively, could they go defensive tackle? Oh yeah, they took Brian Breesy last year. Okay, they're not going defensive tackle back to back in the first round. Edge, it's probably a bit early, but also they just signed Chase Young. Linebacker, it's early. Corner, I think this is the beginning of when corners could go. But again, they do have, I guess, they have high picks. Alontae Taylor, second round pick from 2022. Paulson Adebo, third round pick from 2021. But I don't think they're good. Okay, they could go corner or left tackle. I think those are the two spots for the Saints. It's corner or left tackle. He has them going left tackle. I think that's mainly because the value there is really good with Fashanu dropping. But it could be either of those positions. Look at the Colts. He has the Colts going corner. Now they go Kenyon Mitchell here. I think with this mock, it's interesting because the L'Jarius Sneed rumors. I know those rumors kind of fell apart. They got Schefter came out and said it's not true. But looking at the Colts, let me see what else they could do here. I think Kenyon Mitchell at this point of the draft is good value. I like him as a prospect. This is kind of where he's supposed to go. This isn't overdrafting him, but if you look at their defense, right, they got Kenny Moore in the slot. They're set there. Yeah, if they're looking at it on the outside, Dallas Flowers, undrafted free agent, they could probably upgrade that. Juju Brent's their second round pick from last year. So yeah, corner makes sense. Too early to go safety, too early to go linebacker. Again, with I think Leatu Latu is really good, but they say his medicals are going to drop him, so it's probably too early to go edge. It looks like defensive tackle is a strength, so you're probably not drafting that. It probably is corner or nothing on defense, and then looking at them offensively, if you're not going to go offensive tackle, there's really yeah, you can't really go anywhere. So corner for the Colts, that looks like a really strong mock draft pick. So that makes sense. Kenyon Mitchell to the Colts. Looking at their depth chart and looking at the way the board is shaking out, I really do think that the Colts taking the first cornerback off the board seems pretty likely, to be honest. We'll go to the next pick, which is Troy Fautanu. So a bit of context here, right? So he's from the University of Washington, right? Obviously a local player. His offensive coordinator in college, Ryan Grubb, is now the offensive coordinator in Seattle. So this has kind of been a thing for me with Seattle, is that like teams sometimes like taking local products that they've had their eyes on for a long time, that they've known of for a long time. And now he's got a guy who's coached him, who's been his offensive coordinator, calling the plays for Seattle. So if Seattle needs an offensive tackle, one of the talking points for any team that needs any situation where a team needs an offensive tackle is, which one do you take out of all the guys? There's a bunch of offensive tackles that you could take, right? A lot of value here. The question becomes, who do you take? With Seattle, the tiebreaker probably sorts itself out, right? The coach that has familiarity with this guy probably takes him. But let me see if offensive tackle is the spot is the position that I like for the Seahawks. You took JSN last year. You're not going receiver back-to-back years. Offensive line. Oh, I guess because they do have their tackles sorted out with Abe Lucas and Charles Cross. I guess this is about kicking Fatanu to guard, and you know what? That makes sense too because of all the top offensive line prospects, he's the one who, because of his size, they talk about kicking him to guard most. So if he's being drafted to play guard, again, it's probably a bit high for. Well, it's not high for guard because Skaronski went, I think, 11 last year. Um, but offensive line is a premium position. Guards are getting paid 20 mil a year. So yeah, Fatanu would definitely be the offensive lineman to go to Seattle because of the guard flexibility and because of the offensive coordinator factor. Again, you're not going tight end here. You're not going quarterback. Especially after I think them trading for Howell, it killed the quarterback hype. You're not going running back. Defensively, I think like corner quietly, I think they could upgrade Michael Jackson. But that's really the only place you could go on the defense, I think, looking at the depth chart. So yeah, it's either corner or Fatanu, and I think Fatanu, like, it makes sense for them to go there. So Fatanu to Seattle is a pick that I like the more that I look at it. We got Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold is, I think he's the top corner with inside out versatility. So let me see with Jacksonville. Let me see with Jacksonville what their depth chart's looking like. So they paid Ronald Darby to play this year, so he's going to be playing at one corner spot. They have Tyson Campbell, second round pick from Georgia, on the other spot. I don't know if this pick is supposed to bench him or if Terrion Arnold's supposed to play in the slot at least initially, because a fifth round pick from last year, Antonio Johnson, I don't know if he's the guy in the slot. I actually don't know anything about him. But yeah, they have their two safeties. They have their linebackers, it looks like. They have their edge rushers. They just paid Eric Armstead. I think, yeah, it's probably, honestly, the corner is the spot you would go. But even that, I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like that's the strongest option. But to be honest, the more I look at this team, I don't see a whole ton of holes as is. You're not going tight end. You're not going tackle, especially because they went tackle first round last year. It's too high to go interior offensive line. Yo, to be honest, I would like receiver here for them. I would really like receiver here for more so than corner. I would like receiver here for Jacksonville. Now, you might look at it and say that Jacksonville could be a trade down candidate because from this spot, if receiver is the position you like, you're drafting the first receiver from the second tier. That's not great bang for your buck at the 17th pick. It probably makes sense for them to trade back. Even honestly, if they want corner, again, I don't know if that slot corner is the guy or not. If that slot corner is the guy and you're not even pressed to get Terrion Arnold, then regardless of whether you want corner or receiver, the Jaguars should trade back. Let me see who the next two teams are. Cincy and the Rams. Cincy and the Rams, do they have a need in common? Like, what would a team be wanting to trade ahead of Cincy and the Rams? I think Cincy just got an offensive tackle today, so they have their two tackles. It's too early for interior line. Cincy, I don't know. Maybe Cincy wants a receiver if they trade T. Higgins, but I don't know. They're not. It's too early for running back. It's not going to be tight end. It's too early for that. It's not going to be quarterback. What is the position for Cincinnati? I'm gonna look at their depth chart real quick because frankly, with the Rams, it could be a lot of things. Like, they have a lot of spots they could upgrade, or they could prioritize in the draft. Defensively, they just got Sheldon Rankins. It's not edge, maybe defensive tackle. Okay, maybe it's that. If a team wants the best, the defensive tackle from Texas, the best one off the board, because the Rams could be candidates to take that player because they lost Aaron Donald, and the Bengals could be a candidate to take that player because they lost DJ Reader, it could be only way Cincinnati moves up is if Bowers is still there. Oh, I agree, but I was more thinking not Cincinnati moving up, but a team moving up into 17th overall to get ahead of Cincinnati and the Rams. Because, like, yeah, the more I look at Jacksonville's situation, I really think that like it makes sense for them to trade back. I don't really think they need to be pressed to take anybody at 17. Only way since he moves up is if Bowers is there. Yeah, I wonder. That'd be interesting if they, because that would be like, we need to get a weapon because we're about to lose T. Higgins, but it's not going to be a receiver. We're going to get that from our tight end. Long term, right? If it's an issue to pay a wide receiver along with Jamar Chase, then maybe you draft a tight end because it's a lot easier to pay tight ends. So that makes sense. Actually, I like what you're cooking here with Bowers in Cincinnati and how that would make sense. But I wonder how high up they would be willing to trade. I like Bowers to the Jets. I wonder if the Bengals would trade up into 9 to get Bowers. That would be something. That would certainly be something. But yeah, Jacksonville. I think I'd like if they have to make a pick at 17. I think I like receiver more than corner, but I would like a trade back for them. Next pick, the Bengals take J.C. Latham. This is the second pick in this draft that's impacted by a free agency signing today. So earlier the Mike Williams the Mike Williams signing is kind of what ruined the Marvin Harrison Jr. trade up that he mocked for the Jets. And now the Bengals, they drafted Trent Brown. They drafted Trent Brown. Oh, sorry, I keep confusing terms. They signed Trent Brown. So they have Orlando Brown, they have Trent Brown, they have two big ass Browns. So they're probably not going offensive line depth or offensive line future in the first round. And the thing is, drafting your left tackle / right tackle of the future when you don't have a set. Actually, in this case, it would be right tackle because Orlando Brown's on the left. Drafting your tackle of the future is not a bad thing, but as bad of a season as Cincy had last year because of their injuries, I think that they're gonna, it's gonna mean more to them to have a good year this year, for sure. And with that being the case, I think they're gonna try to draft an impact player. So this would have been an impact player if you didn't sign your right tackle. Now that you have, you got to look at Cincy and try to see, okay, who would make an impact right now, right? Again, do they go receiver because they're about to trade T. Higgins? Maybe. Do they go tight end with Bowers not being there and Gesicki being on the team? No. It's too early to go running back. So it's kind of receiver or bust offensively. And then defensively, I think honestly they could go defensive tackle. I think that would be an impact player right now if they take. I think Byron Murphy is his name, the Texas defensive tackle. You're not going to go linebacker here. They signed two safeties, so you're not going safety. It's also too high for safety. And then Mike Hilton and Cam Taylor Britt, I think, are both. They got their positions locked in. I don't know how DJ Turner played last year. Like I wasn't paying attention to him personally, but a second round pick from last year, they're probably going to give him the chance to play. So to be honest, receiver looks like it's a need here, and it kind of falls in line with what Tamson's saying here, with the Bowers suggestion, like a pass catching target, a pass catching option is definitely a priority for Cincinnati. But if the top guys go off the board too high, I feel the same way about Cincinnati that I feel about Jacksonville. This seems like a trade back situation for Cincy. Now, again, I don't know if there's going to be enough teams that want to trade up, but I think this is a pretty natural point in the draft where teams are going to start making calls about going backwards. Rams at 19 take Laiatu Latu. So I think this is fascinating for a couple reasons, right? Something to keep in mind. The Rams had Puka Nacua last year. Puka Nacua was a player that a lot of scouts liked last year. However, he fell in the draft because of medical concerns. A lot of people, kind of saw not obviously what happened coming, but they saw him being able to be a productive player in the NFL. They also saw him potentially being somebody who could struggle with injury issues as his career goes on. Being that the Rams clearly showed that we'll take a flyer on that kind of player if the value is good enough in the 5th round. It seems like this is kind of, if they take Latu, that's kind of doing the same thing, right? Laiatu Latu, I think, on merit of his ability, should go much higher than 19th overall. But the word with him is that medical concerns are going to cause him to fall. That's the reason he's going 19th overall here. I think this is amazing value for the Rams, just like Puka Nacua was. in the 5th round. I think that value kind of helps you take the gamble on the medical concerns. And that's one side of how you look at this pick. And the other side of it is, again, how he broke it down here. This is the main man in the middle following Aaron Donald's retirement. Laiatu Latu is the player you obviously you don't replace Aaron Donald, but you need to try to replace some of the pass rush ability. Now, this isn't coming from this isn't going to be the same position, but you're adding a certified pass rusher on the edge, kind of restoring a bit of the presence that you're losing with Aaron Donald leaving. So that's a solid pick for them. He's got the Steelers taking Tyler Guyton. So again, with the offensive tackles at this part of the draft, again, it's just about who you like personally. Again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I scout offensive tackles with a whole lot of attention to detail. I don't know that position that well. So I can't tell you much about him personally. I know he is said to have, like, he's really big. He's really strong. He's got the measurables. He's from Oklahoma, obviously a good program. I really want us to get JPJ number 2 there. Oh yeah, because you guys, I feel like the center spot has been like, it's been very uncertain for you guys after Pouncey retired. So like JPJ at 20, that would stamp that center spot for you for the next 8 to 9, 10 years, kind of. That's interesting. JPJ at 20. I don't have a feel for how the league feels about taking centers, because I think all offensive line positions are important. I think we've seen in the NFL recently how important of a position it is. We're seeing guards starting to get paid. I think centers getting paid is probably just the natural next step. But yeah, I think you take a center at 20 and don't think about it, right? Or think too hard about it. I think the league might overthink it and be like, we can't go center at 20. That being said, if the Steelers want to take JPJ, they trade back a little bit. But, the problem that I identified earlier is I think a lot of these teams, based on their needs and based on the board, if it shakes out like this, would want to trade back. And there's probably not enough teams looking to trade up. For the teams cheering or the teams looking to trade back, you need to cheer for a run on corners, a run on tackles, a run on receivers. Those position groups where there's a lot of talent, you got to hope that there's a run that starts there that pressures teams to trade up to get the guys they like that are going in the run. If not, I think all these teams are going to have to sit here and make picks. And for the Steelers, I'm going to look at their depth chart here to see what I like for them. We got our guy here, our Steelers fan in the building, Tamsin. He's saying center, but let's see what I see. So Steelers, first position here, you look at wide receiver, right? You got George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin. Now, the Steelers as an organization are so good at the wide receiver position that by their standards, this is a bad wide receiver room. There's been talk about Ayuk going to Pittsburgh. We'll see if that happens. As an Eagles fan, I'd hope that the Steelers can help us out and make San Francisco weaker. But I don't know if they get Ayuk. Obviously, receivers not in question here anymore, or is not like it's not in consideration here anymore. But if they don't get Ayuk, then I definitely think you look at receiver. Like, you have to have, I think, a better top 3 than Pickens, Jefferson, and Austin. If you're going offensive line, actually, Tamsin, I'd like to ask you a question about the offensive line. Help us learn a little bit more about the Steelers. So I think Isaac Seumalo, Broderick Jones, those are the 2 spots that I'm looking at, and I'm like, okay, they're locked in. They're locked in as 2 starters. James Daniels, are you happy with like locking him in as your guard, and Dan Moore at left tackle? Are you happy with those 2 players? Because I don't know much about either of them. I know Dan Moore was expected to not be the left tackle. Fans wanted Broderick Jones to play, and Dan Moore kind of held it down and kept playing. So I don't know if that's because he's particularly good or because they just like him or whatever. I know Nate Herbig was signed from the Jets, but he was with the Eagles before that. So yeah, just help us learn a little bit about the offensive line situation, because I think they could go out, like they could definitely go anywhere except Seumalo and Jones's spots. Yeah, Daniels is a lock. More needs to go. Okay, so if Daniels is a lock, the guard spots are locked up. It's just center and left tackle. So honestly, if it's center or left tackle, then you guys are in a. If the board shakes out like this, you have the chance to take the left tackle if you want to. You have a chance to take the center if you want to. Here saying receiver will be round 2 or round 3. Is that like, just out of curiosity, is that your opinion, or is that like is that kind of like what the organization is leaking out? Is that what the fans are hearing, or is that just personally how you feel? Because the thing is, as much as I love the receivers in the first round, there's so many good receivers in this draft. Like, if you need a receiver, you don't have to overdraft them. You can just sit, let the right one fall to you, and go from there. So, but yeah, there's a bunch of positions they could go offensively. I'm looking at the defense. I think with Keanu Benton being a pick that looks like it worked last year, they probably don't go high interior defensive line again. Obviously, their edge rushers are good. They spent money on a linebacker. They're too high to go that position, anyways. They have 2 safeties. I think they could probably take a corner if they wanted to, but it's not enough of a need compared to some of their other needs on offense. So this definitely looks like offensive line or receiver to me. Steelers don't go receiver round 1, unlikely to be 2 as well, in my opinion. Okay, so if that's an organizational thing, actually that's a good point, because AB wasn't a round 1 pick, Mike Wallace wasn't, Emmanuel Sanders wasn't, Pickens isn't, Deontay Johnson wasn't. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. The Steelers don't go receiver in the first round, so it's definitely looking like offensive line. Take your pick, left tackle or center. Either way, it works. They got the Dolphins, or Daniel Jeremiah has the Dolphins going, Graham Barton. Let me look at the Dolphins depth chart, because I don't know. I feel like they got worse talent-wise this offseason. I feel like they got gashed. Okay, so they're obviously not going receiver. Offensive line-wise, they have their 2 tackles. They signed a center and Aaron Brewer. I think they probably need a guard, so I think that's why he did this pick, to give them a guard. You're not going tight end, you're not going running back, you're not going quarterback. So yeah, I guess interior offensive line is the only place to go offensively. Defensively, they lost Christian Wilkins, and they didn't sign anybody that good. Looking at the interior of their defensive line, so this definitely is Byron Murphy territory. They're not going to go edge with the fact that they have 3 edge rushers right now. Too early to go linebacker. They got 2 safeties, but it's too early to go there. They got 3 corners. Yeah, for me, it's interesting. They're going interior of the trenches. They're either going to go defensive tackle or guard/center. I think the value here is much better at defensive tackle. I think it's interesting that Jeremiah doesn't have a defensive tackle off the board yet, but yeah, I think I would give them Byron Murphy here. I don't know. I think Graham Barton is a bit of a reach. Next pick they got here is Nate Wiggins. Eagles going corner makes the most sense. That's the biggest hole in the depth chart. I'm an Eagles fan, so I don't have to pull up the depth chart. I know this inside and out. The thing here is basically they're either going to go corner because they need a corner, or they're going to go right tackle to get the Lane Johnson long-term replacement. The right tackle pick would be the classic Howie Roseman, believe in like prioritize the trenches kind of a move. That would just be that, right? But yeah, we need a corner, man. If we're trying, like, your right tackle, the future will not help you win a Super Bowl. The corner you pick that plays early, he might. So I'd love to see them go corner, man. I think it's necessary. Based on what I saw last year, I think Ringo might be okay to play next year. I think Slay will probably be fine. I think Bradbury needs to be cut, but it is what it is. That leaves the slot to be the position that we need to play right now. And I don't know if Nate Wiggins is a slot guy. Like I haven't got to scouting like the cornerbacks yet. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's the guy. I think Terrion Arnold is the dream here, or Cooper DeJean, because both of them have slot flexibility for sure. Nate Wiggins, I'm not sure of though, so we'll see. Cooper DeJean, I think, would be fun. Having a white DB, I just think would be fun. Like a good white DB, we might need to see that. Um, Cardinals are the pick 23 here because he has them trading back with Minnesota. I don't think the Cardinals will be here. I think this is probably Brian Thomas Jr. Range here. By the way, I'm not a fan. I don't like him as a prospect. I'll probably get to talk about it more extensively later, but I'm not a fan of Brian Thomas Jr. Uh, I also don't expect Arizona to be here, so I think this is like not something worth talking about a whole lot. Dallas going Jackson Powers Johnson, JPJ, the player that Thompson wanted to go to wanted for Pittsburgh. Um, yeah, that's the guy. That's a very highly rated interior lineman, somebody who Dallas needs because they lost Biadish. Um, Makes sense for them. They drafted Travis Frederick, I think, kind of in this range. They got, I guess, a lot of shit for it. It panned out. They drafted Tyler Smith in this range, got a bit of shit for it. It panned out. If they take another center here, they'll probably get some shit for it, but it'll probably pan out. So that checks out for Dallas. To just really quickly look at Dallas's needs, because I do feel like this isn't the only one. Geez, that notification caught me to jump. I don't think that would be the only one. Let me see. Not that DJ Dallas. All right, Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, so you could go receiver because you don't have your wide receiver too. Um, you could go center, like the interior of the line. With Biotish not being there and Tyler Smith getting kicked to tackle like they have here, you definitely have to go interior. Those are the two places you would go offensively. Defensively, I think you can't go corner because you paid Lewis, you have Bland, you have Diggs, you can't go safety. Yeah, I think this is either interior of the line or receiver. And I guess for Dallas, I don't know if they're the type to go round one for wide receiver two. So I think JPJ actually is a pretty good mock here. But if not, it's receiver. And for them, I think they need a target for deep balls. And I'm trying to think. A Worthy, I think it's a little high for Worthy. Um, who else is a good deep? Honestly, there's a bunch. Even Leggett, you could say like would help with that. But yeah, Dallas has options here. They have Green Bay taking Amarius Mims. I think Green Bay lost an offensive lineman, but let me see. Let me see who that is. I got to see because I think Green Bay is such a young team that they're not under a lot of pressure to draft certain positions. Along the offensive line, it looks like left tackle and because Bakhtiari's left tackle spot and who else did they lose on the offensive line? I think they lost the guard Runyon, and that was Myers the center last year. Let me see, Josh Myers. He played 17 games last year, so he started 17 games. So it's either guard or left tackle. They could go either offensive line position. They're not going receiver, running back, quarterback, tight end. Defensively, if anything, you probably go safety, and it's a bit early for that. So yeah, I think left tackle is definitely a good mock for them. It's at this point with a guy like Amarius Mims on the board, it's better value than the interior of the offensive line. So that's good for them. That checks out. 26, Darius Robinson. We got edge for Tampa Bay. Is edge really the best thing for Tampa Bay? Also, I think Tampa Bay had a win now offseason, which is a little bit strange. I guess you have to do that when you win a playoff game. But factoring that, what are the win now moves they could make? Um, let me see. Offensively, I don't think they signed Sua Opeta to start. I guess they could use a left guard, though the rest of the line is fine. Probably a bit with JPJ off the board. I don't know. It might be a bit early for guard. It's not going to be any of the other offensive positions. Defensively, thing is, at the edge, they have Tryon Shoyinka and Yaya Diaby, so they don't have a weakness necessarily, but they could probably stand to get an upgrade, which is what he has them taking. I guess that becomes a Shaq Barrett replacement, but you took Cansey last year. You're not going interior of the defensive line, not going safety. They could go corner, to be honest. They could go corner. Actually, they signed 2 corners, so they're not going corner either. I don't know. Honestly, I think offensive line is probably the better win now move than edge. They could go edge too, though. Honestly, yeah, those are the 2 moves. They either go offensive line or they go edge. I could see the merits for both. Oh, Arizona has a 3rd pick in this draft because of the trade back? That's wild. That's wild. Let me look at Arizona again. Actually, I'm going to do the opposite here. I'm going to see what are the positions you can't draft on Arizona, because this is the 3rd first-round pick here, which I don't think will actually happen. But okay, you can't draft offensive tackle. You can't draft. I think you could go left guard. I don't know much about the center, but you could probably go center if you wanted to. You can't go tight end. You can't go tackle. You can't go quarterback. And then defensively, who are like the guys? I guess Buda Baker, Sean Murphy Bunting. I think they probably are good at. They're going to say they're good at nickel corner and one of the outside spots. But yeah, this pick could go anywhere. In this mock, this particular pick, I'm just going to plug this charger in really quickly. Byron Murphy. This is the best defensive tackle coming off the board at 27th overall. That's unreal value. Again, going BPA at this pick is probably the way to go for Arizona. You're not doing shit next year. You're not that good. Just go BPA. In this case, this is BPA. I don't think he'll be here, but that's what Daniel Jeremiah has, people. Buffalo Bills going Johnny Newton from Illinois. Buffalo, I think, is definitely they're in a win now mode, even though they lost a lot of vets. And they're going to be playing a lot more younger players. They're going to be a younger team, but I still think they're drafting with trying to win now in mind. Looking at their team, they got their starters defensively, I think, everywhere except one safety position. But they could probably upgrade a couple of those spots. It's too early to go safety, I still think. Offensively, what is the splash move? It's receiver. It's definitely a receiver. But at the same time, they had Shakir playing well down the stretch. They signed Curtis Samuel. They have Diggs. They signed Mac Hollins. I think they have their guys to play receiver. Could they go offensive line? Maybe they could go guard. Did David Edwards play last year, though? Let's see. David Edwards stats. David Edwards did not start any games. So yeah, they probably could go guard here if they wanted to. Guard. Defensively, I guess they could go BPA. The thing is, he has them taking a defensive tackle, and I think Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver, you have your starters there. I think Daquan Jones being replaced long-term by this pick at defensive tackle would make sense, but I don't know if they're going for depth in the future with this pick, so I don't know about that, but otherwise, like, good value, I think, with taking Newton here. He's got the Lions going corner, taking Kool-Aid. Let's see if that's their best need. Now, I mentioned this yesterday when I talked about the Lions. They're very much a build through the draft organization. So this is going to be big for them, I think. This is really where they're going to try to get better. Looking at the depth chart here, at corner, that was their biggest deficiency last year, I think. I think This year, they're going to play Carlton Davis because they traded for him. They're going to play Amik Robertson in the slot because they signed him. That's going to kick Brian Branch to safety, and I think him and Kirby Joseph will play. I think Cam Sutton's spot at corner is up for grabs and could definitely be drafted. It's too early to go. Like, there's no linebacker to take here, even though they would. If they wanted to, they would. But that being said, no, they have Anzalone and Jack Campbell. They're going to play Davenport. They have Hutchinson. Yeah, defensively, corner would be the position. Offensively, let me see. It wouldn't be running back. It wouldn't be quarterback. It wouldn't be tight end. It wouldn't be tackle for sure. It could probably be interior of the line because they have two 30-year-old guards. But yeah, guards you can get later. Yeah, I mean, corner for this team makes sense here. I think them getting Kool-Aid, specifically an outside corner because they have Amik Robertson. So that checks out. We got Baltimore here. Baltimore taking Cooper DeJean. I think this might be the third thing. This is the third instance of I'm not looking up. Why am I looking up Cooper? This might be the third instance of the mocked pick not really making sense because of a signing today, because they signed their slot corner Arthur Millette today. So if they have Arthur Millette in the slot, they have Marlon Humphrey on the outside. They have, I think they're hoping that the fourth round pick from Bama, Jalen Armour Davis, that he's ready to play on the outside. But if they have those guys there to play, like Ronald Darby is who played last year, I guess you could replace Ronald Darby outside corner. Safeties are set. Linebacker is set because they're going to play Trenton Simpson. The thing is, they have enough guys to rush from the edge. They have enough guys in the middle. They could probably draft another guy in the middle because Michael Pierce and Brent Urban are old. But yeah, they could go corner or interior of the defensive line. Running back wise, they don't pick running backs here. It's also not a position you can take here. Quarterback, no. Tight end, no. Offensive line, they could go tackle. They just traded Morgan Moses. Actually, I think the fact that they traded Morgan Moses, if it's not because that they really love Daniel Falele, then it's probably tackle here. I think that's the most Baltimore Ravens pick I could think of. They traded but they let Zeitler go, and they traded Morgan Moses. I think that's a telltale sign that we're going to get offensive line here. So I don't know about Cooper DeJean. I think offensive line is the way to go here. Last two picks here. Chop Robinson for the Niners. San Fran, I think when I checked, defense is definitely going to be the way they go because they have their whole offense returning. And I don't think they're going to upgrade offensive line spots, which is what they should do, but I don't think they will. They're going to go defense. And if they're going to add to their defense, in my opinion, I think they're going to go defensive tackle here if they have the option to. Now, 2 tackles just went in the last 3-4 picks. So that kind of sucks for them. But I think between Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw and Javon Hargrave and all the different instances, Solomon Thomas, they really like investing in the defensive line. And they're underinvested in the defensive line right now. So their secondary, I think things have panned out with some of their picks, Hufanga, Jair Brown, Diamador Lenore. So I think they'll be fine in that regard. They're not going to go there, I don't think. I think they definitely go defensive tackle, and they can't if they can. But if they can't, they could still add an edge. They still could get better at edge. So edge makes sense, Chop Robinson, but I would go defensive tackle. The 2 guys that I would want for them, if I were them, are off the board, but defensive tackle over edge for me. And then last but not least, the Chiefs. Now, I think the Chiefs are definitely going to go offense because their defense was really good last year. I think if you look at their offense, it's either going to be offensive line or receiver. But I think with how glaring of a issue receiving was, I think they're going to go receiver. And listen, if Adonai Mitchell is here, if A.D. Mitchell is here, man, that three-peat might happen. For those of you guys who aren't who haven't been made familiar, this is an AD Mitchell stand account. I think he's an awesome player. I think he's an awesome receiver. I think that, man, I think he's going to be so good in the NFL. I see a lot of CD Lamb when I watch him. When I watched him play, he looked like 6'1" to me. Like he looked like he was 6'1". He moved amazingly, really good agility, really good body control. And then I looked it up and I think I saw he was 6'4". Bro, he is unreal for somebody who's 6'4". I'll tell you that much. So if they get Adonai Mitchell, man, that's a hell of a pick. But we're gonna wrap up the live stream here. That's the breakdown of the first Move the Sticks mock draft that I was around for to preview or to recap. I had a Mel Kiper mock that I was gonna react to after this. This stream went way too long, so I'm gonna push the Mel Kiper thing to Thursday. We're gonna do the AFC tomorrow. Shout out to everybody who found this video and found this channel for the first time. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Two very important forms of engagement for the growth of a YouTube channel. And check the channel out, man. Subscribe, look through the videos, get a feel for the kind of content we do here, and tap in because a lot more content to come. I had a blast. I hope you had as much fun watching it. See you guys.